button and
so you have to authorize something.
we are on.
We're on. So may I start?
Yes.
Ok. Boa noite a todos. Agradeço a todos que estão presentes aqui no YouTube assistindo esse seminário. Nós temos aqui hoje o professor Marco de Felice, da Università de Bologna, na Itália. Ele vai apresentar o seminário Advancements in Digital Twins for IoT Environments, Bridging Applied and Scientific Research. Esse seminário é uma promoção do programa de pós-graduação em Ciência da Computação da UFBC. E agora eu vou, então, peço licença para falar em inglês, tá certo? Já que o seminário vai ser em inglês. Então, good evening, everyone. Today we have a seminar by Professor Marco Di Felice from University of Bologna, Italy. And I thank Marco a lot because for accepting the invitation, but also because it's past 11 p.m. in Italy right now. So Marco will talk about this this seminar whose title is Advancements in Digital Twins for IoT Environments, Bridging Applied and Scientific Research. And also I'd like to thank everyone who is watching us right now in YouTube, and those who are watching the video, the stored video afterwards. So that's it. Marco, the virtual floor is yours. Okay.
Thank you, Carlos, for the nice introduction. I don't speak Portuguese, but I could understand few words. Also, I thank you for the invitation. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here. And even if it's late evening, I will try to engage you with my presentation. Just a few words about myself. I'm a full professor in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Bologna. I'm a networking guy, even if in the last years I shift my attention on the interplay between communication systems and data technologies. And in my department, I founded a small research lab called IoT Prism Lab. We do research on the vertical of autonomous IoT systems, where autonomous means capability of integrating heterogeneous sensing systems like ground sensors, UAVs, robots, means capability of moving computation over the edge cloud continuum, and in particular moving intelligence over the edge cloud continuum, and running artificial intelligence on extreme edge, or running artificial intelligence algorithm on distributed systems. So actually, all these icons here have been generated through generative AI. But in our lab in Bologna, we have biological brains. This is my group, and probably you can recognize some photos here, because we have a small but growing colony of Brazilian researchers in our lab. And also I would like to invite you all students and PhD interested on spending a period abroad in Italy to visit our lab, because we are always open to new. We are always looking for new collaborations and new opportunities to work on new topics together. So, as you could read from my title, the title of my keynote, I will focus on digital twin, and in particular, we are going to consider this basic scenario. So we have a real physical IoT asset. I will provide some example during my presentation. We assume to be able to monitor the IoT scenario by using heterogeneous sensing technologies, can be ground sensors, can be UAVs, can be robots. So we collect IoT data over time, combine the data plus domain knowledge, and in this way we are able to create a reproduction of the real system called the digital twin. Through the reproduction of the real system, we can predict the future system state at time t plus k, where k can be 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 month, 1 year. We can do correlation analysis between the input and output parameters of the real system, and also we can run a what if analysis. So this is also the structure of the keynote. Actually, I will consider an unusual logical flow, because when we do research, okay, we start reading paper, we start analyzing the state of the art, and then typically we identify research challenges of a topic, we solve the research challenge, and then when all the piece of the puzzle have been considered, have been solved, then we move to application. Well, in my case, during the keynote, I will somehow change this logical flow, because I will start with the state of art of digital twin in IoT environments, but then move to the applications. So, because in these years we have been involved in many different national and international research projects whose goal was to develop a digital twin. And so we'll try to share with you the lessons we learn from the practical application of digital twin in real world system, and then move to the improved part. So which are the challenges, technological and scientific challenges that we identified, that we found in working on real world application, and how we try to solve those challenges. So first of all, in every good keynote, since I attend some conferences during my career, I know that every good keynote should contain at least some equations, some algorithms, and should contain some theorem to be considered a serious keynote. Now, if you are wondering what is the connection, the logical connection between the Newton's law of motion, Dijkstra's algorithm, and Camp theorem, I can say you immediately don't spend effort on this. There is no logical relation between the concepts presented in the slides. I just want to highlight probably a straightforward concept, that straightforward idea that in computer science it's easy to provide a formal definition of a concept when we have a formalization by using equations, by using algorithm, or by using theorem. It's much harder when you have a concept like IoT, cloud, edge computing, or in my case, digital twin, where there is no formalization. And indeed, in the literature, there are many possible definitions of digital twins. I don't want to start a fight on this. Just highlight that in the examples I will provide later, and during this keynote, for us, during the keynote, the digital twin are considered as computational models that are coupled with a physical system, and the digital twin is able to follow the evolution of the physical asset of the physical system over time in order to replicate its behavior. So for this reason, digital twin is a slightly different concept than simulator, a slightly different concept than emulator, because the digital twin should be able to receive data and to communicate with the physical assets constantly over time, and also should be able to feedback the output of the digital twin into the real environment. Also, in order to deploy a digital twin as a computer scientist, we have to integrate many different technologies, many different solutions coming from different areas, from the area of simulation tools, from the area of artificial intelligence, from the area of edge cloud computing, or from the area of data management. And also, if you had the opportunity to read newspaper, to read scientific papers or reports on digital twins, maybe you have heard about many projects whose goal was to develop a digital twins for completely different environments, for completely different applications. For instance, in the city where we live, in Bologna, the municipality is running a big projects related to the digital twin of the city, mainly considering the mobility aspects. But also, some years ago, I found a European project whose goal was to develop the digital twin of the ocean. And recently, I found this other project whose objective was even more ambitious, so creating a digital twin of the Earth. So what I want to highlight in this slide, that if we look at recent literature on digital twin, it seems that building a digital twin is something quite straightforward, because we are able to build digital twin of really complex systems, of really complex environments. So the concept of digital twin somehow looks quite old, or a concept somehow that does not contain any scientific challenge to be addressed. Well, is it really like that? From my experience, from my limited experience, I would say no. There are still technological challenges to be considered, and also scientific challenge. I will start with the technological challenge, mainly refer to our project. So the two projects we developed in Bologna, which consist in the design and development of digital twins for real-world applications. And I will focus on two main use cases. The first use case refers to smart city, and more specifically, it refers to structural health monitoring. So structural monitoring is an interdisciplinary area, is an interdisciplinary set of methodologies and technologies, whose goal is to assess the structural solidity of buildings and infrastructure by combining domain knowledge and also sensing and data analytics techniques. So in Italy, there is lots of interest on structural monitoring applications for many reasons. Probably one of the main reasons is because of the cultural heritage. So if you are planning to visit Italy, or if you had the opportunity to visit Italy, probably you made a stop in Pisa, which is a quite famous city because of the Leaning Tower. Now, I don't want to reduce your expectation, but it seems that I don't know it's possible that the Tower of Pisa is tilting less than before, but there are also other historical buildings, like, for instance, the tower less known, but probably more dangerous, the medieval towers in Bologna that, according to scientific reports, they have an alert for, according to at least newspaper, they have an alert for collapse. So in these years, as a research group, as a PRISP lab, we have been involved in many projects on structural monitoring, funded by European Commission, funded by national initiatives, or funded by private company like the National Railway System of Italy. And also, we had the opportunity to build prototypes and test beds at different scale, starting from experiments in controlled environment like the metal frame on the left, then moving to monitor real-world hydraulic circuit with sensors in order to understand the presence of leakage, the presence of possible leakage, and then moving to big structures like railway bridges or highway viaduct. This is, for instance, the outcome of a national project we developed few months, we developed a few years ago, and the final demo of the project consisted in monitoring a concrete structure like the one you see on the right. So this is a concrete structure of 4 or 5 meters tall, instrumented with accelerometers and acoustic sensors emissions. And in addition, the concrete structure was placed over an instrumentation called the vibrating table. So the vibrating table is able to reproduce the seismic event, so the same accelerometers produced by an earthquake. So for instance, this is a test bed we ran, this is the test we ran ago, and now you will see the impact of a real-world earthquake on a concrete structure. So here we are simulating the same seismic waveform of a real-world seismic event that occurred in Italy 10 years ago in Umbria, in the Umbria region. And through our IoT systems and through our platform, we were able to collect data from the sensors in real time and also to process them in real time. In some of these projects, the goal was even more ambitious. So we want to develop a digital twin of the civil structure, being able to monitor the IoT data in real time, to perform anomaly detection in real time, to perform damage classification in real time, and also, those are the missing point, to create immersive 3D visualization environments. So at the very beginning, when we started working on this project, we thought that, okay, this is quite straightforward pipeline. So we take the data from the IoT sensors, we collect the data in a database, we run some AI algorithm, and then at the end, in case, we fire an alarm. Well, actually, the pipeline more or less was this one, but we had to face many technological challenges. Technological challenge in terms of data management, because especially the highway and railway bridge, they were able to generate a huge volume of data over time, because on every structure we had somehow more than 50 sensors installed. In some cases, the accelerometer or sampled the data with high frequency. And so at the end, more or less, we had to cope with a volume of data between 5 and 10 gigabytes of data per day. So first challenge, the data management. Second challenge, where we place the computation of where we run the anomaly detection, when we run the damage detection. We cannot run the computation on the cloud because we cannot transfer those amount of data per day to the cloud. We cannot run the computation on the edge because we don't have enough computational capabilities. So for this reason, we had to come out with a solution where we have some service run on the edge, some service running on the cloud, and based on the structure we have to monitor, and based also on the dynamic workload, we have to be able to move some software, to move some tasks between the edge and the cloud. Third challenge, since we plan to use artificial intelligence to detect the presence of damage, how we train the machine learning model. Because when we collect data from the bridge, or from a civil structure, we assume that the structural state is not going to change over time. So if the bridge is, or the structure is in undamaged state, we don't expect the structure to change its state in the short term. And at the same time, we cannot damage the bridge just to have the ground truth of the value of the accelerometer or the value of the kilometers when the bridge is damaged. So for this reason, we had to come out with a solution where we integrate simulators and domain knowledge inside our pipeline. So we use FEM model to simulate the structural state of the bridge. We use FEM model in order to reproduce the situation where we have damaged structure, where we have damaged conditions. We collect the data, and then we train the artificial intelligence algorithm over the simulated data produced by the FEM model. And least but not last, we had to face problem of interoperability, because we might have situations where when I might have developed installations with hundreds of sensors, with tens of sensors, hundreds of sensors coming from different manufacturers, or sensors different in types, accelerometer, inclinometer, gyroscope, strain gauges, and every sensor has its own data format and may have its own protocol. So definitely we had to face problems of interoperability in order to be able to collect data from sensing source heterogeneous in terms of types, in terms of protocols. This was the first use case we want to present. And then we have another use case referred to the development of digital twin, but in this case for smart agriculture application, or to be more specific, referred to smart irrigation. So I guess that all of you agree with me that water management is a global issue worldwide, and also from recent study, it seems that only 70% of only 30% of the fresh water can indeed be used for irrigation, because the 70% of the fresh water is wasted because of evaporation issues. So in the last years in Bologna, we have been involved on different projects related to smart irrigation, and more specifically refer to attempts to optimize the water distribution and then the water irrigation. For instance, some years ago, we worked together with Professor Carlos Kamiewski and his department on this European project called SWAMP, whose goal was to develop innovative solutions based on ICT technologies in order to reduce the water wastage. And we had 3 different pilots, one in Brazil, one in Spain, and the last one in Italy. In particular, for the pilot of Italy, the goal was again quite ambitious, because we want to develop a digital twin of a single crop in order to identify the proper need of water of every single crop. And for this reason, we employed different sensing technologies based on ground sensors to measure the ground humidity of the soil and also the temperature, combined with mobile sensors like drones in order to be able to track the growth of the plant over time, combined with weather data. And through this domain knowledge, we feed a water balance model in order to forecast the proper amount of water to be supplied to the crop, and we display the irrigation action recommendation through a mobile app used by farmers. In this case, also, we had to face many. This was the ideal pipeline of the project, but actually we had to face many technological challenges. Probably the main one was related to the presence of data holes in real-time data collection, because sensors, especially ground sensors, were highly unreliable. So we experimented lots of data holes, missing data, because of sensor failure events, because of battery discharging events, because of failures of the communication systems, because of failures of the wireless gateways, failures of the cloud nodes collecting the data, and also because of unexpected events determined by farmers. It was interesting to notice that the problem we faced in this one project actually is common to many others many other projects and many other installations of sensors for smart agriculture applications. For instance, a couple of months ago, we analyzed the data sets available on this platform, International Soil Moisture Networks, that collects hundreds of data sets related to soil moistures almost from all regions of the world. And we found that most of the data set contains data holes, and data holes last for weeks or even months. Because especially when sensors are deployed in remote area, it's quite challenging to go there and replace the faulty devices. So based on, now I'm moving to the third part of my keynote. So based on the lesson learned from the practical development of digital twin on these real-world IoT applications, we identified some scientific challenge that we try to address, doing what typical researchers like us are able to do. So making experiments, collecting results, writing papers, and submitting the papers to the scientific community. In particular, due to shortage of time today, I'm going to focus on two main challenges that I identified in the real-world application described before. So first challenge, the problem of data holes, of missing data in the data collection. Second challenge is even more ambitious, how to increase automation in digital twin generation. So I know that every digital twin is different from the other based on the use case. So the digital twin of a crop is completely different from the digital twin of a bridge or the digital twin of a human body. But at the same time, we try to address the issue on how to, if possible, find a way to integrate domain knowledge inside the digital twin generation, so domain knowledge specific of the system we want to build. At the same time, how to find a methodology that is application agnostic, so a methodology that can be applied whatever is our use case. I will start with the first challenge and then move to the second one, which is actually even more involved than the first one. So the solution we are investigating in order to cope with data holes in data collection probably is quite straightforward. So we consider a generic a smart agriculture environment where there are two actors. On one side, we have the sensing layer, so sensor developed on the field in order to measure, for instance, the soil moisture or the temperature of the soil. On this side, we have the cloud layer, collecting data from the sensors, and in between we have in between we introduced a new layer, so we called the edge proxy. The edge proxy is in charge in our vision to orchestrate the sensing and forecasting operation. So it will intercept the request coming from the application and offload the request for sensing to the sensors or handle the request internally by applying forecasting methods. So basically, the edge proxy, in the edge proxy component, our software is continuously switching between two states. One state where we really query the sensors and we get the real data from the sensor and we return that data to the application. or another state, which is the forecasting, where we receive the request from the application, and instead of querying the sensors, we try to guess what could be the next sensing value, the next value of the sensing system. While we switch between those two states, well, we have a twofold goal. The first goal is to optimize the duty cycle of the sensing systems, because when we enter in forecasting mode, the sensors can enter a deep sleep, so can save some energy. And in addition, in this way, we can cope with the missing data holes, because if the edge proxy is not receiving any data from the field, still it will be able to reply to the application by trying to forecasting a reasonable value for the sensing system, still with some approximation. Also, we introduced another novelty in the study, which has been recently published at CCNC last year, the CCNC conference last year. The novelty comes from the inference module, because instead of having a single machine learning model in order to forecast the next value of the time series, we try to we're trying to identify distinct patterns in the time series and have a separate machine learning model for each distinct pattern. What does it mean? It means that let's consider, for instance, the soil moisture sensor. In the soil moisture sensor, if we consider the time series, for sure we see some effects due to the soil dynamics. But also, when we measure the soil moisture, when we see the IoT data produced by the sensor, we might also see the impacts of unpredictable events like irrigation events or raining events. So instead of having a single machine learning models able to predict the full time series, we try to identify different patterns corresponding to different events, and this is done by applying clustering. And when we identify different clusters, for instance, this might be a cluster related to irrigation events, this might be a cluster related to rain events, we run a separate machine learning model for each different clusters. And by running experiments on a real-world soil moisture dataset, we found that this solution was quite effective. So it was much better than considering a single solution without no cluster, or even a solution where we employ clusters based on the value of the sensor, of the precipitation sensors, while our approach is completely agnostic of the context. So it's able to identify the presence of clusters without employing additional sensors than the one from which we measure the soil moisture from the field. Okay, this was actually the solution for the first challenge. For the second challenge, okay, we try probably to address a problem even more involved than the previous one. So how to somehow increase the automation in digital twin generation and how to integrate the domain knowledge. So let's make an example. We have a real system like a robot. We want to build a digital twin of the robot. And in order to do that, we create a framework which is able to collect, to collect the IoT data from the robotic system. In particular, we monitor the states and the actions of the robots over time. Then again, we apply some algorithms in order to infer the transition between states and actions. And at the end, we spawn a twin with exactly with the same API than the original system. And translated into 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 the original again, considering this example, this would mean that I can interact with the digital twin using exactly the same interface as the physical assets, so as the original system. So if I want to send a command like moving the robot to the left and check on the digital twin before whether the action is safe, so the robot is not going to interfere with any obstacle, we can send the command to the digital twin, expecting to receive the output as from the robot, but in this case from the simulated counterpart. And then, in case the command is safe, so the robot is not going to interfere with any obstacle, then we send the same command to the real asset. And of course, the challenge here is to create this pipeline in a completely domain agnostic way. So whatever is the digital twin we want to build. Can be a robot, can be a UAV, can be a controller of an AC system. So whatever IoT, of course, of limited complexity we have, more or less we are running this pipeline. And in order to be completely domain agnostic, first of all, we have to be able to collect the IoT data supporting more or less all possible protocols and all possible data formats, supported by the real system. Of course, this is a big challenge, but what we try to do is to employ a standard, a uniform way to retrieve data from the physical assets. And this is done through a standard for interoperability known as the Web of Things, released by the V3C, which is the same entity that standardizes all the protocols and most of the protocols and the solutions for the web. So in the Web Thing, the Web Thing is simplifying a lot, is a collection of semantic metadata that describe how to interact with the physical assets. And in particular, in this semantic metadata, the Web Thing describes the property of the physical asset, the action supported by the physical assets, and the events that will be triggered by the physical assets. Again, the implementation can be different, but the standards try to define a uniform way to describe the behavior of a thing by modeling the properties, so the variables, by modeling the actions, and by modeling the events. So assuming that we have a Web of Things description of the physical assets, then actually what we did is try to model the behavior of the physical assets over time by considering a Markovian decision process, where the states of my physical asset corresponds to the property of the Web Thing, the actions corresponds to the actions of the Web Thing description, and the transition probabilities are learned over time. So while the user is interacting with the real system, we intercept the states, we intercept the actions, and we try to estimate the transition probability to go from one state to the other when the user is performing a given action. And in order to estimate the transition probability, again, we test different approach based only estimating the frequency of the action, or approach based on machine learning, where the probability, the probability function to move from one state to another state after the user performs a given action is estimated by using an artificial neural network. And we test this solution for the case of the ground rover, where the rover is moving on a simplified grid environment. And in addition, the environment is not deterministic, because some cells can have slipping materials or an obstacle. So in case, for instance, in case here the robot moves from position here to this, moves up from this position, in some case the robots will reach the expected location, but in our case it will move to adjacent cell. And so in this case, the transition probability is not deterministic. We try to compute, to infer the transition probability by monitoring the behavior of the device over time, and then applied frequency-based and machine learning techniques in order to get the probability function. I'm going to skip the results because in case of interest, I can give you all the reference to the papers where we published those results. Well, I will move to continuing with this line of research. I will present another extension of this idea called relativistic digital twin, where more or less we are still trying to solve the same problem. So automatize the generation of a digital twin in a domain agnostic way, implementing the same pipeline. So we assume that we are able to monitor the behavior of a physical assets over time, collecting the IoT properties and action of the digital twin, and at the end spawn a system that exposes exactly the same API than the original system. But differently from the previous paper, we changed the way to basically to estimate the transition probability and the way to embed domain knowledge inside the digital twin generation. So in this approach, called relativistic digital twin, we assume that somehow the behavioral model, so the computational description of how the IoT system will evolve over time is given by a set of equations, and the set of equations is already known because in some real-world applications there's already lots of research in the engineering field, in the physics field, in the agri-tech field. So we already have some model-based knowledge about the IoT system, of how the system will evolve over time. And it's more a matter of embedding this knowledge inside the software and tuning the behavioral model on the data we receive from the field. So differently from the previous use case, in this framework, we allow the developer to embed equations inside the description of the web thing, equations that can be algebraic, modeling the instantaneous value of a property, or differential, so describing the evolution of a physical quantity over time, like for instance, describing how the temperature in a room is going to evolve over time. And then in our framework, the user can provide those equations inside the digital twin description of the system, and the system automatically will tune the missing parameters from by monitoring the IoT system, and when it has reached a given level of confidence of the digital twin accuracy, it will spawn the digital twin exposing exactly the same API as the real world thing. Okay, those are just some screenshots of our framework where we allow to monitor a thing, to monitor the behavior of the digital twin, or to implement some actions on the digital twin in order to see the effect of that action on the digital twin before executing the same action on the real system. And and also in this case, we developed some use case. For instance, we build a digital twin of a drone, of a quadcopter, So in this case, the system is controllable through some commands, so through some properties, which are commands giving the position and the altitude of the drone over time. And we monitor some properties of the drone, like the position, the altitude, the compass, the elevator, and so on. And also we provide an input to our framework the equations explaining the movements of the drone over time. So this is a kinematic model based on second-order linear dynamics. We observe the position. We observe the real-world drone flying in a controlled environment for some time, and after some seconds, once we the framework learned the parameters of the behavioral model, we generated the digital twin, and the user could interact with the digital twin exactly in the same way as interacting with the real-world system. Those are some results where we validate the effectiveness of the estimation of the position in the digital twin compared to the real-world position of the drones. And we found that the more different lines refer to the red lines refer to the real position of the drone. The green and blue refers to the expected position in the digital twin when we spawn the digital twin after 5 seconds or after 15 seconds. And we can see that the green line is much more closer to the real position than the blue line. So meaning that 5 seconds probably were not enough to correctly estimate the parameters of the kinematic of the drone, while 50 seconds of observation were enough to have a good approximation for the trajectory estimation. Similarly, another use case, probably more realistic than the previous one. In this case, we are considering an application where the drone must move inside a geofence area. So the drone is not allowed to move outside a given boundary, can only fly inside the controlled zone. And in case the drone fly over the controlled zone, an alarm should be sent, or the action should not be allowed. So again, we employed the digital twin framework in order to be able to predict the position of the drone over time and to estimate whether a given sequence of commands provided by the user to the drone by using the joystick could lead to a situation where the drone would move outside the geofence area. And we can notice that, so this is the, again, this is the precision of the digital twin framework. So in how many cases the framework will predict that the drone will move outside the geofence area. And we can notice that, again, if we train the system for 15 seconds and we consider a look ahead, so we look at what is going to happen to the drone up to a maximum of 2 seconds, we have an accuracy almost over 100%. So the system is really accurate. When the look ahead increases, so when we try to predict the future position of the drones in 8 seconds or 10 seconds, of course, the accuracy is going to decrease, and probably this means that we still have to work and improve the forecasting method. And actually, this was also the last results I want to show in my keynote. Just a few highlights related to the next activities. We are keep working on digital twin of the UAVs, also modeling hybrid environments of UAVs, plus ground sensors. We keep working on the idea of automatizing the creation of the digital twin, incorporating a domain knowledge, and combining a completely artificial intelligence approach with a domain knowledge approach. And also, we plan to work on environments where we don't have to generate only the digital twin of a single system, but the digital twin of a federated environment with many different actors playing inside the same ecosystem. Every actor may have his own digital twin, and so it's more a matter of how to federate and how to aggregate different digital twins with different inputs and potentially different outputs. I thank you for the invitation, and I'm open to every possible curiosity or questions coming from the attendees.
So, thank you very much, Marco, for your presentation. Even though I've been like 1 year with you and your team in Bologna, I was not really aware of everything, just hearing some things in concept. So this is very, very nice. Now we are open to questions, so the attendees can ask questions in the chat, in the in YouTube. If you want, you might ask the question in Portuguese. I might be able to translate it. I have some questions myself, but then I'm kind of suspect since I'm more connected to your work, Marco. Just let's see. Okay. Okay. Andre is just making this question that I'm copying here in our chat here. So in relation to drones, is it possible to get the position of drones at the right time in order to avoid collision?
Yeah, thanks.
To crash to each
Thank
other?
you for the question. Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah, actually, yes, this is another potential applications of the digital twin. So I present some results about the geofence area. But once you have a digital twin and more or less you have a good modeling of the trajectory of the drone, yes, definitely one application can also try to forecast possible collisions in a multi-drone environment. So based on the inputs provided to the drones, based on their current states, based on current locations, the digital twin might tell you whether there's a risk of a possible collision and whether it would be better to apply some change in the trajectory in order to avoid any risk. Yeah, potentially we can. I also thank you for the suggestion, because this could be also a nice use case to test through our framework.
So thank you, Marco. There is another question from Rafael, which is okay. Carla already copied. So in the bridge example, the digital twin model is created based only in the sensor data regression model-free approach, or some dynamic model is used in the data to find the model parameters?
Yeah, this is also a good question. Actually, okay, I have to say that all the projects I presented are I forgot to say they are interdisciplinary projects. So they are not run only by my group. There is an interdisciplinary group of researchers in Unitiba, also involving a researcher from other universities, because of course I'm a computer scientist. We don't have even if I have in these years I learned few technical words from the civil engineering domain. Still, many things are I'm completely ignorant of many aspects. So definitely, in the digital twin generation and also in the data processing, data acquisition, data cleaning, we rely on domain knowledge coming from domain expert. So this is to say that in the bridge example, what we do is to take the data from IoT data from the bridge, and the IoT data are used to fit a model of the bridge developed by the civil engineers by using their FEM model. So they actually, what they do is they increase the accuracy of the model based on real world data coming from the bridge. And then once they have a better modeling of the bridge combining theories plus real world data coming from the field, they are able to generate synthetic data. They are able to simulate damage. They are able to simulate critic events, and the critic events and the damage then will be given in input to an artificial intelligence model in order to recognize one damage from the other. So I would say that we use the data in order to improve the model of the structure. I'm not going to provide more details on the civil engineer because I know that the video is recorded, and I don't want to say something I really don't know, but more or less this is the flow, and I hope I answered to your question.
Well, thank you, Marco. There is a question from Felipe, which is if you are considering other methods such as NERF. I'm not sure what that means. If you are not aware, so I can ask Felipe to explain it in the chat, and then we come back to this question.
I'm sorry.
Afterwards. And also there is a question from Denner, and he's asking a question about the presented model was the prediction of sensor data and expected behaviors, but what about the components, the hardware and software components that form the IoT system, not the application, so the very components of the IoT, the platform, the IoT platform. I'm extending the question. Is that possible to create a digital twin to simulate the IoT platform itself? So does it make sense?
Well, probably yes. Let me go first to the question, and then I will answer to your curiosity. The presented model addresses prediction sensor data, but what about the components that form the IoT systems? Okay, I don't know if the question is about to get more details about the components, or about the predictions also of the or the predictions of the behavior of the sensor themselves, or regarding the details of the hardware software system. Of course, in the projects I mentioned, we have completely different sensing setup for the bridge monitoring, for the structural monitoring, or for the agri-tech environments, because we have also completely different requirements. In case of structural monitoring, we monitor in real time with high frequency, considering combinations of heterogeneous sensors, measuring different properties of the civil structure. So in some setup we have probably more than 10 types of sensors, strain gauges, accelerometer, displacement, and in most cases they sense in real time with high frequencies. While for the agri-tech projects, especially if the goal is water monitoring, there's no need to monitor with high frequency. We can even one sample per hour might be enough for some applications, and definitely the set of sensors we use is much more is much smaller than the structural monitoring, because we were considering mainly soil moisture and temperature data. If the question is about the digital twinning also of these components, well, this is actually what we try to do with the first solution I presented. So the solution to cope with missing data ores. So in that case, we create a digital shadow, not of the application itself, but a digital shadow of the sensing system. So a system that more or less try to reproduce only the data, so only to forecast only the data generated by sensors. But maybe we can also try to extend the digital shadow to characterize the behavior of the sensing system. And yes, would be possible to model an entire IoT system and its relationships. Yeah, probably. Of course, the more we increase the complexity, the more data we need. And in case of, I presented two different approaches to create the digital twin. One completely data-driven, the second one based on domain knowledge. If we go for domain knowledge, then we need to know how somehow we need to have already some equations explaining how the IoT system behave one with each other, and probably this is not possible. If we go for a completely IoT approach, completely data-driven approach, then again, when the system scales of complexity, maybe also is not possible to have a single artificial intelligence predicting all the future states of the IoT system. So here the challenge is to find a good compromise between domain knowledge and the completely data-driven approach.
Okay, thank you very much. There is another question here. It was asked by Enrique. And so the question is, how are you addressing connectivity problems in the real world? You know, so this is very tricky, and camera sensors that may not stream at enough quality, or a signal that cannot stream at the quality of a camera sensor, etc.
Yeah, this is also okay. This is also a very good question, because the first part of the keynote, I try to focus on our experience in developing digital twins, and of course, and on the real world challenge that we faced in our limited experience. And definitely, connectivity is one of the main was one of the main challenges. So the fact that in some cases we don't receive data from the structure we are monitoring, or in the agriculture, smart agriculture application, we don't receive data from the field, and maybe the field is located, like in our case, 30 kilometers from Bologna, and we cannot go there. And we cannot go there easily and replace the sensors. So definitely connectivity is a big issue. What we try to do this goes to the, I would say, so this is a technological challenge. How we try to solve is more a scientific proposal. So we don't pretend to have a solution to this challenge. What we tried to do in one case was we try to develop this digital twin framework where in case we don't have connectivity from the field, so we don't receive data, we try in the short term to predict the missing value of the time series. That's one approach. Second, also we test. I didn't present, and I didn't present because of shortage of time. For the agri-tech environment, we test the possibility to use drones as data mules. So in case a sensor is not working and we are not receiving any soil moisture data from the field, we use a drone as a data mule to go there, land in the same position of the sensor, collect the missing value, and then going back to the return back to the controlling room. Of course, this was more a scientific. Cannot be scalable and cannot be applied to all possible environment, but it was a solution we test for the short term and for a very specific environment. Otherwise, I would say that connectivity problem is definitely an issue, because if you don't have data from the field, then you cannot feed the digital twin. And the digital twin is not, as I said at the very beginning of my talk, is not a simulator. It's something that must be continuously fed with data over time and must be able to inject the output on the real system. Otherwise, it's not a digital twin. And of course, also connected to the second question, you need quality data, because in data analytics, we say GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you have garbage data and input, also the prediction of the digital twin will be completely meaningless.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Can we go on for like more 5 minutes or 10? Because we have 2 more questions in the chat.
Yeah, I can stay all night long.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because it's past midnight already. So yeah, I need to leave.
Don't worry.
Andrea is curious about because you mentioned at the beginning that you've been using generative AI, but then it was just for the image or for what that you've been using?
No, actually it was a joke. We are not working on, we are not planning to use generative, I still don't find a way to use generative AI for digital twin application. So it was only a joke. We use generative AI to build the icons of the presentations, but we are not focusing, we are not doing research on this topic, even if we know it's really hot and it's really important. We work on other area of AI, mainly federated learning system, AGI, but generative is a bit out of our scope.
Yeah, maybe you could just say like ChatGPT, hey, can you just create a digital twin for structural health management?
Yeah.
It will do everything.
That's a good suggestion. I will try as soon as we close
our session here. So we have talking about like SHM. That there is a question, Eloy. He is interested. There are different techniques to structural health monitor, such as model comparison, frequency response. Which technique do you use for SHM so that the digital twin can detect in real time in which devices to use? And I ask this because such techniques usually require lots of computation.
Yeah. That's also a good question. As I said at the very beginning, one challenge we faced. Also, as you know, Carlos, now I'm not in Bologna. I'm not in my office in these days because I'm in Naples, specifically for emissions related to a project on structural monitoring. One of the issues I mentioned in the first slides was one of the challenge was how to analyze the data in real time, considering the resource we have and the computational resource we have, considering that some techniques are quite computationally expensive, and also that we cannot run on the cloud because we cannot transfer raw data, especially when the number of structure is going to increase over time. When we have to deal not with a single structure, but we are going to monitor many structures, and at the same time, we cannot run purely on the edge. We cannot run on the sensors. We cannot run on a Raspberry Pi because probably we don't have enough computational. We don't have enough computational power. So for this reason, we try, as a computer scientist, we try to come out with a software architecture and with a software platforms where some components are run, some components are executed on the edge. For instance, the extraction of features from the raw data of the sensors, and we transmit only the features to the cloud. At the same time, since structures are not all they're not all the same, so another features of our platform was the capability to have in a not a seamless way, but in a quite, would say, in a flexible way, the possibility to configure which feature extraction to have for which structure we want to monitor. So in a structure, probably we want to monitor the feature, the accelerometer. So we want to extract the frequency, vibration frequency of that structure. So we run an OMA, operational mode analysis, and we run on the edge. In another structure, probably we only want to monitor the displacement, and so we have a feature extraction for the displacement on the edge, and we transfer the output, the features, to the cloud. So one contribution as a computer scientist, as I said before, was the capability to move computational tasks in a portable way, flexible way between the edge and the cloud, and possibility to configure different features for different structures. So coming to the questions, we use different techniques. Mainly we focused on the accelerometer and the analysis, vibration analysis, so extraction of frequencies from accelerometers, but also for different projects we tested we use different sensors and we extract different features, and the goal was to do it in real time. So to move to the anomaly detection in real time, and for this reason we had to employ many different tricks on the edge cloud continuum to be able to compute the computation to compute before new data are received from the bridge.
Thanks, Marcus. And so to finalize your keynote, I just have a question of myself. So in your title and your presentation, you mixes two, I'd say, umbrella concepts like digital twins and IoT, or one can say, okay, two buzzwords, or etc. But then, and they were developed separately and not together. And so, how do you relate, like, digital twins for IoT, IoT for digital twins without IoT, or So, how do you see these things?
Yeah, this is well, this is also a good questions. In my the talk follow more or less. It was a showcase of the projects of the research we do in part of the research we do in our group, part of the research we do in Bologna, and in our in the applications I presented. So the structural monitoring and the agriculture. We have also other projects on healthcare, more or less following the same pipeline. The digital twin is something that is fed by the IoT. So we have the IoT produces some data, and through the IoT data, we build a digital twin. So digital twin is something that of course depends on the IoT, but comes after the IoT. So assuming that we are able to monitor a system through the IoT technologies and get IoT data in real time, then after we develop the digital twin. But also can be also the opposite. So the digital twin is also asked probably in previous questions in the chat. The goal of the digital twin is to develop a digital clone of the IoT system. So the digital twin still receive data from receive data from the field. So still the digital twin will come after the IoT. But the goal of the digital twin is to reproduce the IoT system itself. And more or less, this is, in a very preliminary way, this was what we were trying to do in the digital shadow example for the agri-tech. So modeling, building a digital shadow of the sensor itself, or the sensing part itself. I don't know if I answered to your questions.
Yeah, you answered my question. Was just actually a curiosity of mine, because yeah, I understand, because as you said, it's based on your experience in your project, and it's always based on IoT feeding the digital twin. Yeah. So okay, so now we can finish your keynote, and I thank you once more for being with us at this late at night in Italy. And so I will stop streaming right now, and I thank the attendees and those who ask questions, and we would like to count on you next time that we have a next seminar of the graduate in computer science. So everyone here, and Marco maybe.
Yeah, Carlos, I also thank you for the opportunity. I thank all the attendees. And as I show in the first slides, we have some Brazilian researchers in our lab. We are always open to new students on a PhD who wants to come to visit Italy, to visit Bologna, to visit our lab.
So you are accepting PhD students or postdocs, and so.
Yeah, especially.
Are there positions available?
Yeah, the Brazilian students who come from your lab, they are extremely good. So if there are any other candidates like the one we have now in the lab, they are always welcome.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I'll just stop streaming right now. Again.